Hello there. It is Friday, the 16th of August, and it is time for Cuppa and cards. So this is my longer version of a single card draw. It's where we pick a topic and we talk about it, and then I'll pull a card for you. So this week I thought we would talk about that classic thing, I see dead people, right? It's a little bit of a throwback to a popular movie. But what I thought we would talk about today is how do we connect with those who have passed away, how we may experience death now in the present, and how to improve your ability to talk to the dead. So grab your tea, pull up a chair, and we can have a quick chat about it. Hopefully not too quick. Rubios for me today. Yesterday was definitely a 2 coffee morning, but I'm going to do my best to stick to 1 cup today. So let me just scooch this over a bit and set my tea here. Okay, so the first thing is, do dead people exist after, let me rephrase that. Do people exist after death? So meaning, once you die, are you still able to contact those people here on Earth, right? Or here in the present, we should say, not necessarily on Earth. I find this very interesting because I am definitely a person who believes in haunting. I have had several experiences with people after they have died, and I'll go into those a little bit later. But my first thought around this is there are a couple of types of hauntings. The first haunting would be like a residual haunt. This would be where someone's energy just repeats the same thing over and over and we're able to see it. An example would be seeing a Civil War soldier walking through the backyard, or maybe seeing someone who's a fisherman and you see a fisher boat going out over and over doing the same thing every day. It's just like a repeating event, like a old movie reel that just keeps playing over and over. Other types of haunts would be an intelligent haunt. So an intelligent haunt would be more of something that you can interact with. So I'm sure we've all seen on Ghost Hunters and all the assorted television shows where they're out looking for people, or people have passed away, where they'll say, is there anyone here with us? And then they'll record an EVP of a voice that responds. Or they'll say, if you're here with us, knock, right? And then there's a knock that comes back. So that would be something that you could interact with. That's going to be more along the lines of, like I said, something that you're able to actually communicate with. There have been several recordings and videos and so forth. I think one of the most ones that I remember is with I think it was Penn State Penitentiary. And it was with Jason Hawes, I believe that was his name, with Ghost Hunters. And they actually recorded had a video going down a hallway, a corridor, and you could see something float away from it. Blew me away. The minute I saw it, I absolutely knew it was a real apparition. So I've not captured anything like that on video per se, or I have captured some things on audio. I had a couple of EVPs that I was able to pick up out at my at the time, my grandfather's grave. It was before my grandmother had passed away. So I went out and did some EVP work out there. I've done a lot of work in cemeteries and things like that just to try and capture some sounds. That's what actually led me to my work, or to my interest in Hekate, was because of that link to the dead, right? To being able to work in that liminal space, or to be able to interact with those things that may be in that other realm. So do they exist? I believe they do. I believe that there is something there. We're able to interact with it. Some of us can interact with it a little more easily than others. And I think it has a lot to do with how much you expose yourself to things like television and violence and contaminated food and water and things like that. Very similar to the last conversation we had about empathic eating. I think that those types of contaminants or poisons or whatever you want to call it, those things that are in your system do have an impact on whether or not you're able to connect telepathically, empathically, magically, whatever word you want to use, to those other energies. So that's question one. What do you think about question one? Do you think that you're able to communicate with the dead? Tell me about it in the chat. That'll be your first question. All right. The next question, or the next topic or part of topic we're going to talk about, is communicating with those. Now, we've already talked about EVPs and apparitions and things like that. What I'm referring to now is, what have you actually seen, right? I don't mean what you saw on Facebook or saw on YouTube or your brother's granddaddy's uncle's first cousin told you. What have you actually seen? So for me, I've had a couple of experiences. The most notable one was when we first moved here into this house. Well, not this house, obviously it's been rebuilt, but the house that was here previously was owned by someone named Miss Rose. And Miss Rose lived here for a very long time. My understanding is that she had at least 2 husbands that passed away either in or around the property, and she was actually moved from here to a convalescent home, and then she passed away. And that's how the house ended up on the market. So Miss Rose was in this house when we came here. There's been several occasions that we had experienced her being in the house. When one episode was, we were in the living room, what was in the living room at the time, and I distinctly saw a full body apparition come into the room where we are and look into the room and then leave. She was always in the house, in the kitchen and the living room area. I also saw one of her husbands. I don't know which one it was, but he was dressed in a denim style shirt, and he had like a railroad cap on. And we had to actually move the bed because the way the bed was facing, every night when I would come in to go to sleep, he would lean his head into the room and look right into my face, right? So he'd just kind of peep around the corner at me. And it became so, I was waking up constantly every night. We had to move the direction of the bed so that he couldn't do that anymore. It was quite interesting. I ended up hanging a scrying mirror at the end of the hallway to sort of pull that energy away from the bedroom door because it was so powerful. On several occasions, Eli saw him walking through the backyard. He would be walking with a rake or with a hoe or something like that, like he was on his way to do some work. So that was the one set of persons that I've had interactions with. The next set that I had was it was on the night that my grandmother passed away. I was in bed and I woke up and my grandmother was sitting at the end of my bed. She told me that I needed to be strong, and she told me to check on Connie. That was her words, check on Connie. She's in my things. That was what she said. I laid back down, and a few hours later, we got the phone call that it was time that my grandmother had passed away. And I told my aunts about what happened, shared that information with them not too long afterwards. But it was quite clear that, it wasn't too long after she had passed away that she did come and pay a visit to me here in the house. So what kind of experiences have you had? Have you had an experience where someone, maybe a loved one that you cared about, or maybe someone who was trying to scare you, maybe someone who's just trying to claim their space like Miss Rose? Have you had an experience with someone after they passed away? Tell me about it. Let's talk about it in the comments. So the last thing I want to talk about is how do you improve your ability to connect with those who've passed away? We want to be receptive to that energy. A lot of people, I have a sister, for example, who I started, once we moved in, I started telling her about Miss Rose and the other man that I was seeing walking around the house. And she just came running through through the house and living room going, go to the light, go to the light, trying to make everybody go away, which I found quite interesting and quite funny. But you have to make your area receptive for them. You have to put in things that are welcoming of those that have passed away or that may be interested in communicating with you. Some things that I've found is incense, for example. I mentioned this earlier, I use this Indian temple incense in my house. I always have it burning, try to keep it in. It's very soothing, keeps me calm, and calm energy breeds calm energy. So if you want to bring in those spirits that have that calm energy, you're going to want to have those things around that bring that in as well. Another thing I have is I have this candle up here at the top. I keep candles burning. I try not to use scented candles because the incense is scented, but I do keep those around. I have crystal balls. This one is a amethyst crystal, but I do have a couple of different crystals, some clear quartz that I have strategically placed throughout the house. I also keep divination tools. So a board, for example, a spirit board. I'm not quite sure if the camera's going to pick it up, but there's one here that I have that's for decoration. But I keep those things around, like I'll keep runes laying on a counter, or I'll keep, a scrying mirror. I'll keep a pendulum, those kinds of things laying around, that if a spirit decides they want to talk to me, there is a method for them to do that. I try to keep things around that encourage that type of behavior because that's what I want to promote. Another thing that you can do is you can create an ancestor altar. I don't have mine available on camera, but an ancestor altar can be any type of cupboard or cabinet or altar, whatever you want to create. And then you put pictures of those who have passed that you may want to communicate with. And then you put things on it that they would have liked. An example would be if you had an aunt who liked the ocean, you may want to put seashells in front of her picture. Maybe someone who would always go for a walk or liked lavender, maybe you put lavender petals in front of them. Or it maybe even a purple stone or an amethyst stone, maybe a birthstone. Those kinds of things in that altar setup will kind of think of it as like putting toys out, right, to play with. You bring things out that they'll enjoy. That's another thing that I have is, if I've mentioned before, I'm neurodivergent, so I do a lot of fidgeting. I do a lot of fidget spinners and twirling my rings and that sort of thing. So I've got a whole plethora of fidget type items up on my desk that every now and then I'll be able to listen out and I'll hear something ticking or spinning or turning. I keep those things out there that may attract that type of energy. Aside from your ancestor altar and of course your different divination products, another thing that I try to do is I try to adorn myself with things that will attract that type of energy. Garnet, for example. To me, I read a book a while back, and I want to say it was The Witch's Book of the Dead. But I read a book a while back and it referenced getting garnet as a way to bind yourself to energies, entities, spirits, gods and goddesses, those items from the other plane, so that they would be able to work with you, right? I have garnet on my wrist. I have garnet around my neck. I have a garnet ring as well, but it's in the shop being repaired. But I chose garnet for that reason, just to help connect me with that spirit energy of those who have passed away. One final way that I'll give you of connecting with the dead is just to spend time with the dead. It's an uncomfortable conversation. Many of us don't know how to behave around dead people. And I think that's probably the main reason that I avoid funerals the way I do. People don't know how to walk into a room and keep their energy in check, right? I connect very deeply with emotions that people project. I like to say that I'm a mirror. If you come at me with anger, you're going to get anger back. If you come at me with love, you're going to get love back. That's just what happens, right? It's nothing that I control. It's not intentional. It's what happens when that energy comes and that cycle is created, that give and take that happens between people. And when you go into a funeral, for example, there's so much pain, and people just, I don't know, they just walk in and they just let all of that out, and it overwhelms me when I walk into a room. I feel every bit of the pain. I see every bit of it. It hits me to my core, and I cannot control it. So I avoid those places. If you want to connect with the dead, though, you're going to have to be with the dead. So you're going to have to go to where they are. I recommend maybe doing some volunteer work for Find a Grave. That's something I did for many years. It's a website where you go around and catalog cemeteries. You take pictures of the headstones and you post them on the website for different families who maybe aren't able to come and take pictures themselves. So I did a lot of that work. You can also look at other ways of volunteering, perhaps in a hospice situation where someone doesn't have family and they need someone to sit with them when they cross over. I've not done anything like that last one yet. Most of my work has been with helping people who are interested in locating the graves or taking photos of the graves, especially children's graves. People are very interested in that. So I take a lot of those photos and share them online. So what do you think? How do you connect with the dead? What types of things do you keep around? One thing I think one famous one is if you smell a cigar, then, obviously someone who's passed away is nearby. That's a famous little thing that you can feel in a chill in the air. It will be that someone has been there who is dead. What have you heard? What can you share? So that's our episode for today. That's episode 7. I hope you're hanging in there and keeping score and leaving your comments. Now we're going to do a single card pull. We're going to pull from the River Witch Oracle. As I mentioned this week, I sent off my deck to be proofed. It's a supplemental deck for the Crossroads Oracle. So we should have that. I think they said the print time was about 2.5 weeks. So as soon as I get that first deck, I will definitely share a video. This is our card for today. I'm going to hold that up so you can have a look at it. And our card for today is Ruby. That's so cool. I was just talking about a garnet, right? And that's sort of like a sister stone. Our 3 key words for Ruby are affection, safety, and strength. So when we're thinking about this card and we're thinking about what it means to us, we could really put these 3 words into our episode topic for the day, right? When we're thinking about affection, we're thinking about those family members. We're thinking about whether it be a love affection or a familiar affection or maybe a friend affection. We're thinking about those people we care about, that we want to hold dear. Self-affection is really important as well. Do things that make you happy. Take you out for a date. Do those things that you want to do, not just for other people. We're not just doing things for other people. We want to make sure that we're happy as well. The next word in our list is safety. Safety is key. When you're doing anything, if you are working with the dead, if you're working with, people that need help because they're passing through, you want to be sure that your safety is taken care of. Your safety of spirit, of mind, and body. Just like I said, I generally don't go to funerals. If I were around all of that emotional energy, it would devastate me, and my safety is so much more important to me than that. Our final word is strength. Strength is imperative in day-to-day life, whether you're working with the dead or not. I mean, the dead can't hurt you, right? It's the living you got to worry about. Be strong, be mindful, be present, and you will succeed in everything you do. So that's our card for today. Again, here's another look at it. It is the Ruby card. It is from the River Witch Oracle. I hope you've enjoyed our episode for today. Tell me in the comments, what do you think about, working with the dead? Do you see dead people? How do you deal with that? Tell me a story about when you ran into someone who has passed on. And finally, let me know, what do you think about that ancestor altar? What stones or little bits and bobs do you keep around to keep the dead happy? I will be pulling another card for tomorrow. I hope you've enjoyed your reading today. Have a glorious Friday, and I'll talk to you soon.